Crash by Jerry Spinelli, chapters 29 and 30. Read for you by Mrs. Shoemaker. Chapter 29. Dinner was over. Uncle Herm wanted to play football. It was a nice day, so we went out to the backyard. Something new was in the corner of the yard, a pile of wood. My father looked at me. "What's that?" "Don't ask me," I said. It wasn't the kind of wood for making an observation post in a tree, which Abby had been pestering me about. These were split logs and sticks, a jumbled mess. My father zeroed in on Abby. "Does this have something to do with your cockamamie idea to turn our yard into a jungle?" "It's not a jungle," Abby snapped. "It's a wildlife habitat. And it's not just your yard, it's my yard too. I live here." My father snapped back. "That's exactly right. And that's why I work 70 hours a week to make a good home for you. You, not vermin. Which is what that," he pointed at the woodpile, "will attract." "What's vermin?" said Abby. "Rats." "It won't attract rats," she snapped. "It's for mice." "Mice are little rats." He flipped his thumb over his shoulder. "The wood goes." Abby boiled like a forgotten pot on the stove. Sides for the game were me, Dad, and Bridget against Scooter, Abby, and Uncle Herm. We just played two-hand tag, and with the girls and all, it wasn't much of a game. I kept scoring without even trying. Since the game was tag, I used my speed instead of my power. Mostly my father played quarterback while Bridget and I went out for passes. On the other team, Uncle Herm did most of the passing. Abby and Scooter were receivers. Whenever Scooter got the ball, I tried to picture him as a speedy little kid in the streets, but I couldn't do it. Then they ran a trick play where Uncle Herm passed to Abby, and Abby, just before she got tagged, lateraled the ball to Scooter. It fooled me just long enough to give Scooter a head start. I lit out after him. Scooter carried the ball so high it was stuffed in his armpit. And he was ripping. Suddenly he was that little kid tearing down the back alley with some housewife hanging wash and shouting, "Look at him scoot!" Only it was really Abby behind me yelling, "Go, Scooter, go!" And the goal line, marked by the weed whacker, was coming up fast, and I reached out but couldn't touch him. So I dove, flew through the air and tackled him at the knees and brought him down. He felt like sticks, just inches from the weed whacker. The ball popped loose. It was wobbling in the end zone. I pounced on it, jumped up, saw that it wasn't covered, and took off. Ran that baby coast to coast. Abby screaming, but nobody lay a finger on me. I spiked the ball in the end zone and did my TD dance, which I was never allowed to do in school. Abby was at the other end, kneeling over Scooter, who was sitting on the grass with his legs flat out like the sides of a triangle. My father was stomping toward me, growling in my face, and clenched teeth kind of growl he used when he's outside and doesn't want the neighbors to hear. "What do you think you're doing? What do you think you're doing?" I just started walking to the other end. Abby was on one side of Scooter, Uncle Herm on the other. They hoisted him to his feet. Bridget reached in and pulled a blade of grass from his forehead. His cheekbone was red, like that Dawn clown from the dance who had smacked him with her rouge. Abby was screeching something at me, but Scooter was only looking. He undraped his arm from the others. He gave me a little nod and a smile, and then another voice came yelling, a voice I didn't recognize. "No, no, I said never again." Everyone turned. It was my mother, at the back door. The reason she sounded different was because she was pinching her nose. Her other hand was holding my football laundry bag as far out from her as her arms could reach. Chapter 30. I guess I forgot to empty out the bag. I couldn't remember where I had left it, but obviously my mother had stumbled across it. You could almost see the stink fumes rising out of it. I was going to take it, but my mother had other ideas. She let go of her nose, held her breath, and turned the bag upside down. Stuff came falling onto the back steps. Socks, shirts, jocks, towels, candy wrappers, pizza crusts, Cheerios, mouse. Mouse! Abby shrieked. Mouse! It was a mouse, all right. It landed on a sock and scampered over a shirt, down the steps, and into the grass. I ran the opposite way. Abby went after it. Here, Mousie! Here, Mousie! And at first, I thought she was trying to catch it. Then I realized she was herding it toward the woodpile. I couldn't see it in the grass. It looked like my sister was chasing a ghost. Finally, she stopped in front of the woodpile. I think he's in there, she whispered. She patted the pile. Make yourself at home, Mousie. The wood goes, my father said. Abby planted herself in front of the pile and folded her arms. The wood was going over her dead body. I was shaky the rest of the day. As I was picking up from the back steps, I noticed a clump of stuff. Pieces of paper, cloth, thread, dust balls, Kleenex all wadded up. The mouse nest. The rodent had been living in my laundry bag, probably since the football season started. It had been stealing Cheerios. I had carried that bag back and forth to school every day. I thought about the times I had stuck my hand in to pull something out. For 2 months I was inches from a rodent. I carried a rodent around. We ate the same cereal. We slept in the same room. I heard something outside. I looked out my window. Abby was slamming sticks into the wheelbarrow. The pile was shrinking. My father had won. That night, when the mouse thing started to wear off, my mind went back to the football game, to Scooter, to the tackle. Why did I do it? I was just being me, that's all. The crash man. I mean, it's true, I was a little mad at Scooter all week. It was his fault that he pressed the wrong button on the camcorder and none of the film turned out, so there was no movie of the day I broke the single-season scoring record. Okay, so I was a little upset about it, but who wouldn't be? But that's not why I tackled him. That night I heard him telling stories and Abby laughing in his room. They called for me. I said I was busy. Real late, after midnight, I got out of bed and went down the hallway. The house was silent. All the bedroom doors were closed. As quiet as I could, I turned his doorknob, pushed open the door. The edge of the hallway light rolled up the bedspread like some little sunrise. And when it got to the head of the bed, I almost croaked. It wasn't him. It was my sister. I closed the door. I went back down the hall. It felt like the pictures on the wall were looking at me. I opened my sister's door. There he was. Abby must have fallen asleep in his bed, so he just switched rooms with her. I stood at the doorway, looking. He was sleeping on his back. He wore a tank top undershirt. And he was old. I had never seen it before, not in the kitchen, not at the football games, not when he took us places. But now, sleeping in the bed of my 10-year-old sister on her Sylvester sheets and Tweety pillowcase, he was just about as old as anybody I ever saw. I didn't like it. I closed the door and went back to bed. I hadn't used my nightlight for a long time. I turned it on. I had a hard time getting to sleep. I wanted them back in their right rooms. The next day, when I checked the backyard, the woodpile was gone. Where it used to be was now Abby's old dollhouse.